Okay, so let's actually do something different for once and jump straight into review without an unnecessary long intro. No, just kidding. It has to happen this time, especially since I wanna just let you know this. The S10 series, no matter what you might think, is for the market a very important series. And therefore I wanna take all the time that I think is necessary to properly cover it. Because I want to let you know all the good stuff and all the bad stuff. Because if you pay so much money, you would want to know all of these. I'm also going to mix in some of my subjective thoughts and then you'll make out of that what you want. And in case you're already wondering, where is the S10? Well, the thing is that I bought the S10 with my own money. And well, I've returned it by now. Later on, I'll let you know why, but I'm gonna definitely include that one in the review as well. But what I have to show here is obviously just the S10e and S10e Plus. Before I'm gonna get into that, let's talk about the S10. And let me tell you that actually in terms of form factor, I prefer this one over the S10 and S10 Plus, even though I have to also say that the S10 and S10 Plus feel a little bit more luxurious, a little bit more premium. And I really can't tell you why exactly, because in terms of build quality, they are both absolutely, or all three actually, absolutely excellent. Execution is absolutely great. Maybe it's because that this one feels a little bit rounder, maybe a little bit more kind of, I don't know, maybe like bulky in a not really bulky way. But I have to also say that this feels more like an iPhone 10. Not that there is anything bad with that, but it just doesn't have quite the same maybe elegant curves, which might have something to do with that. But it's not for the matter right now. But one definite form factor benefit that I like on the S10e over the S10 is this. This is a 5.8 inch display with 19 by 5, just like the S10 and S10 Plus, but it is a flat display. So no auto distortions on the sides. We have a little bit more bezel, therefore, yes, sure. But due to being flat and being just as kind of wide as the S10, a little bit actually narrower, but about a 1 centimeter shorter, this feels way more like a kind of old traditional like 16 by 9 phone with bezels, or like an 18 by 9 phone that we had for a short period of time. So this doesn't feel quite as tall, and therefore the balance is in my opinion a little bit better, and it really feels great in the hand. And this is something that I can't do on pretty much any phone that I can remember anymore. Reach the status bar and actually swipe it down. I mean, you don't have to do this anymore with One UI, but this is a big thing. Also, one big thing is maybe the fingerprint reader. I mean, I said it already in my preview of the S10 and also on the E that I think it's placed too high. And what I got as an excuse from a lot of people is one that I actually can't accept, because they said due to the internals, the way the SoC is placed and so on, they had to put it higher. Now, from a consumer standpoint, that I just have to also keep in mind during my review, I'm gonna tell you this. If I would go into a shop and there the salesperson tells me it's because of the chip, I would tell him, okay, why should I bother about that? I want it in a convenient solution, I want it in a convenient way, and I don't care why it's not. Okay. But I also have to tell you this. At first, I found it too high, and I still think in some situations, especially when I use it at home, more in a not quite as upright position, when I have the phone a little bit more like this, then it feels sometimes too high. But when I use it a little bit more flat, like right now, actually it's in a good position. A little bit too high still, but it's fine. But it actually makes up for that just in terms of sheer quality, because as you can see here, it reacts very fast, almost instantaneously, but I would say just about as good as the best ones on the back or wherever we had them. And it's actually so small, but still very, very reliable. And if you would, for example, press it, which you don't even have to, it feels absolutely fast. So, next part. Camera protrudes just a little bit. Otherwise, we have the mic here, SD card and SIM card tray, volume rocker that I would personally still wish to be on the other side, but it is what it is. Samsung does it like this for years. Bixby button. Obviously, the speaker works in tandem with the earpiece, USB Type-C, and the headphone jack that is still there. And I think besides LG, that's the only flagship that still has that one. Like I said, also flat. I like that. Even though I have to say, this has the screen protector. And you can feel the kind of transition from the glass to the screen protector, which you don't do on the S10 because of the edge. Otherwise, let's quickly get into the punch-out hole. I'm not a fan of it. And actually, a few people got me wrong, because I said when I watch your video, I don't like the fact that this is in my peripheral view, and I can see that's a little bit disturbing. I would wish it to be on the left side. And people said, if you want it on the bottom, why not just turn it around? Okay, here's my explanation why that feels just wrong for me. If you use a phone like this, no matter which game you start or which video, it usually always, and not actually usually, it always rotates like this. Because this way also, since the bottom firing speaker is here, it can reflect with your hand, if you use it with the right hand obviously, and the sound is better. If I do it like this, it feels just wrong for me because nothing out of the box rotates this way. This doesn't really reflect that much, and I prefer the sound of the slightly stronger part to be on the right. So this, for me, just feels more right. And therefore, I don't like the position here. I would still wish for this to be more like a teardrop notch in the middle, because out of center it feels wrong. But that's just about that. But otherwise, like I said, build quality and everything else is great. And like I said, you will get used to the size. And I definitely have to say that I prefer this slightly less tall feel in the hand, because the edges, for example, this with 5.8 inches compared to the 6.1 inch display, kind of 6.1 fake display, because of the edges you have not the whole width, but it feels longer and therefore it feels taller. And I prefer this one because it doesn't feel so elongated and it feels, in just my opinion, just more right. Now, let's get into the S10 Plus. Camera amplitude's just about the same way. The rest is pretty much exactly the same. It's just a taller phone and also taller in terms of feel than the S10e. The S10 though is just a smaller phone. We don't have to get into that. Now about the fingerprint reader. I've heard a lot of controversy about that one. Here's the part. Okay, you can see if I hit the spot, just look at how quickly I actually get off with it, and it always unlocks. So this means it is fast. And if you do it right, it is also reliable. And yet, I'm not the biggest fan of it. For one reason. First of all, you have to press that point and you kind of get used to it and you know where it is and it's fine. But even if it unlocks, as you can see, this odd animation, these kind of waves, they, I have to say, aren't really smooth. Plus the fact that just look at the delay when I'm taking off my finger until it actually turns on the display. Okay, if I get it right, obviously. You can see there is an odd long delay, and sometimes I think, okay, it didn't unlock, let me do it once again, and then I notice that it unlocked and I press client like twice. So that's why I'm not the biggest fan of that. Now, about the reflections of the edge display, if I'm at home where I don't usually have a light like kind of behind me up or above me, I don't have an issue. But when I'm at work where light is above me and kind of behind me, then I kind of don't like the reflection so much. There is also a little bit of color distortion. But I have to say they got it subtle enough that I don't really care about it so much. So it's still something that I prefer not to be there. But therefore, if you want a pretty much bezel-less design on the sides, yeah, I mean, it's maybe worth the trade-off. What is not really a trade-off worth is this thing. The pill, I mean, it's just so annoying. If that would have been centered, it would have been so much nicer. This, okay. Otherwise, build quality also excellent. This is the ceramic black version. Nothing else to say here. Excellent in terms of design. What they did in terms of quality, I mean, obviously minus the notch and maybe edges if you don't like that. Let's talk about the displays now, though. The one on the S10 and S10 Plus is the same, just smaller, different size, so a little bit different PPI, but I want to get into this one here first. Okay, let's check the screen mode here. And this is actually the same for both. The advanced settings look like this. And what I did is turned off red and green all the way down. Because this display, and I don't think you can see this right now through the video because my video isn't really calibrated the way it should be, is just too yellowy. And I mean, it's cool that you can easily get rid of that by using the screen mode. And then just do this. And now you might say, why not just use the colder mode? I think for some reason this doesn't do the same effect. Cold feels weirdly cold, then it just doesn't feel right. But what I also have to say, and I've talked about that with a different YouTuber and I asked him, I said to him that the S10 and the S10 Plus display, which look exactly the same in my opinion in terms of quality, never feel quite as clean when it comes to the white. There is always like a little bit of some dust over it and it doesn't feel super clean. The S10e does though, and when I had both side by side, and this is something that you won't be able to see over the video no matter if it's 4K, the actual text on the S10e, even though it's the lower res with 1080p, in many situations actually feels sharper, because I've tried using the S10 with full HD, and then definitely this one is sharper. If you set it to quad HD, S10 or S10 Plus, doesn't matter, it's maybe on par. But even though this has the higher resolution, it never actually feels sharper than this one. So I don't care why it is that way, but actually in terms of overall quality, if I would just based on that, I would say that I prefer the display of the S10e. And that's someone who usually always says, I want the Quad HD display. Maybe it's, and I said this already so many times, over resolution, I still prefer quality. And this one is maybe because it's a higher quality 1080p, I love it over the quality. And you might say, wait, does this mean it's not a high quality display? No, don't get me wrong. This is an absolutely superb display. They are all crazy bright, actually super accurate in terms of colors, even though if you use the normal mode, because I watched videos and they look great. They look super natural and absolutely great. But every time I check this one and then go over to this, the white. For me, it's just the white. Looks not quite as clean. But if I would only have this one, and before I checked this one, I was super happy with this one, and I still am. Don't get me wrong. This is still a superb display, even though I would have to say, from my memory, I would still prefer the XZ3 display from Sony because it has a little bit less distortion on the sides, and there the calibration was a little bit more pleasant. But it's maybe a top 2 display, don't get me wrong. But this is a wonderful display. So both are super bright, great colors, great viewing angles. And for example, I saw some people talking about the red tint on the S10. Like I said, turning everything down. I never saw the red tint myself on both versions, not even on this one. There is a little bit of some color shift, color temperature shift, which is normal on AMOLED. But yeah, if people have an issue with the red tint, maybe just use the sliders like I did, because this way the white gets, maybe because of the fact that they said they're using a display that uses like 30% less blue, maybe that's why it feels yellow. So if you raise up the blue by turning off the other ones to colder, this display still doesn't feel cold, because a cold display is something else. And something else is also the speaker arrangement system, and here's also one thing. I said that I think the S10 display or speaker system is like 5% maybe less than on the S10, and someone said, no, it's not, you are talking rubbish because it's the exact same speaker system. Well, it is not, because I did my measurements and I had them all same side by side. The S10 is, or the E, is by a tad little bit, not quite as loud as the S10, and the S10 Plus is a little bit louder than the S10. And we're talking about small margins here that don't really matter, because still, even the S10e, if I just show you off the demo, is so nice and loud, has great quality, and therefore, when I'm saying it's not as good, I mean this like with a difference of like a few percent. So let's get to that real quick. Okay, so now let's do the same thing with the Plus. I mean, I think it's undeniable. It is louder. And both are using the same Dolby Atmos settings. I just left it with Dolby Atmos and the auto mode, so it can do whatever it do. So like I said, quality is absolutely great on both. And what is maybe even more so important, because yes, the S10 might be a little bit louder, but I never actually had to use this one at full max volume. I usually use it at least 2 steps below the highest one, which means I have some reserves. And this is pretty much at the moment one of the best speaker system. It's right there with something like on maybe Pixel 3. Not quite as loud, but quality is super nice, so I like that. And also one big plus to both the headphone jack, because I have to say that it got actually better compared to last year. I can't really confirm that side by side, but now it's louder than ever, at least the Exynos version that I'm reviewing here. And we still have a lot of options that I just like so much, because for example, the Dolby Atmos, you can change here the settings, and under sound you have adapt sound where you can change adapt it to your own ears. We have the equalizer settings, we have that also for games. So the headphone jack is top notch. It's definitely way above average. I mean, I'm just gonna maybe give it 4.5 stars, even though maybe I should already give it 5 stars, because it's better than what I usually give the Xiaomi phones that get 4.5 stars. But I kind of don't want to give it 5 stars because the LG phones are even better, and those usually get 5 gold stars, and I want to keep the distance a little bit bigger. So see it as the best possible 4.5 star headphone jack, or 5 stars. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm just gonna give it officially 4.5, but yeah, you know the rest. About the performance, I also want to quickly mention one thing first before I'm getting into that. I said in my preview that I think I'm gonna give this one 4.5 stars, just because it's not quite on an Snapdragon 855 level. But I decided to actually do something different. I'm gonna give the S10 with the Exynos and the Snapdragon 845 and 855 all the same level with 5 stars. And you might say, wait, you said that the 855 feels better than the 845 and this one just doesn't feel the same way. So if you would want to see it kind of super kind of cranky, you might say, okay, this Snapdragon 855 on, for example, a 1080p phone like the Xiaomi Mi 9 is at the moment the benchmark. This one with the Exynos version is a little bit of a step below. And the S45 as well, because I would say the Exynos here is about on a Snapdragon 845 level. So I should kind of give it 4.5 stars. But what if I've noticed that would kind of throw over my whole performance rating if I keep that in mind, because the next step would be an 835. But if I give that one then only 4 stars, then we are at a 636 at the lowest level already at 3 stars, and that just doesn't quite resemble the performance because it makes it feel too big of a difference. Because if I would give a Snapdragon 636 phone 3 stars and I give this one 1.5 stars, feels kind of oddly too much, because 4 stars for me is always kind of, this is good. This is kind of the average good that, in terms of performance, I mean. And this is still what on 636 or on 660 does. So it's a little bit hard to explain, and it would take me too long for this review. Let me just tell you this. This is mostly still very smooth. Like I said, it's maybe not quite as responsive. It's not quite as snappy as a Snapdragon 855. I also have to say, though, with Full HD, with Quad HD like I'm using here on the S10 Plus, might be a difference. I've noticed that the S10e felt a little bit smoother than the S10 did. The S10 Plus, for some reason, felt already about on the same par. But it feels very smooth. Multitasking works absolutely fine. You can jump between the apps. There is some occasional lag, but that's mostly, I would say, an app optimization thing. And in case you think, wait, what's this animation? This is not stock. I'm using the gesture buttons, but I'm using something else extra, which would be OnePlus gestures. It's actually renamed by now. So for games, it's also a great performer. I've heard that it should throttle, it should get quite warm through, but for example, when I played like Asphalt 8 for over half an hour, I didn't notice a slowdown. So for me, the performance is consistent. So I wouldn't call them the very, very best in terms of performance. But I also have to say this, when I use just what I have right now also on Snapdragon 845 with the Nokia 9, and then I use the 855 on the Xiaomi Mi 9, in daily use, the difference just doesn't matter. And usually I say it doesn't matter, but I notice it, so therefore I will give it a little bit of a difference. But I have to say these times the 845 is so good that this matters on benchmarks, but it doesn't matter in reality. So 5 stars for all of them after all. And yeah, let's talk about something that definitely won't get 5 stars: battery life. And here I measured only the battery life or the battery charge for the S10, and it took 1 hour and 35. So this one should be a little bit quicker, and this one should be a little bit slower, so taking up longer. But my issue is not that, I mean, yep, charging isn't fast anymore. We have phones that do it, for example, like the Mi 9 in an hour already, where this one takes noticeably longer. But here's the thing. The battery life is my issue, and I said this already in the past every time. If I have an Exynos phone, for some reason mobile data isn't good, and I expected the S10 with 3500 milliamp hours to be noticeably better. Or does it have 34? Doesn't really matter, those 100 amps. But it still managed to disappoint me, yes, believe it or not, because the thing is that the S10, after I've used it over a week, was absolutely consistent and absolutely consistently not good. Because, I mean, I expected at first like 4 hours in mobile data, and it didn't really achieve even that. Because usually I ended up like 3.5 hours. But the thing is also that whenever you just push this a little bit more, like for example using Bluetooth or using GPS or make some photos, you are quickly getting even lower, like to 3 hours. So I'm gonna say this, the S10, which is the worst, around 3.5 hours on mobile data and about 6 hours on Wi-Fi. So there is also already a big difference. I still see the big difference to be kind of maybe due to the Exynos versions and maybe the reception, because my reception was way worse. Usually when I have like 5 bars with the Samsungs, I have like 2 bars. And I definitely don't have the best connection, but it's okay. But yeah, okay. So therefore there might be a little bit of a bigger difference. Now, with the S10e, you get about half an hour more. So 3.5 mobile data, 6.5 Wi-Fi. And this one gets you an additional half an hour. So 4 hours and 7 hours on data. And you might say, really? Yeah, I can only tell you what I get. 3.5, 4, 4.5. And just as a reference, I don't know what happened because I did not change my behavior. Nothing has changed, and this one also just gets me about 4 hours at the moment. I'm just started reviewing this, but the Mi 9, I only ended up at around 4 hours with mobile data. So I have no idea why my values are so weak, because I saw someone who said that he got 8 hours on the S10 and he had 50% left on mobile data. I have no idea how to get that value. I would assume to get maybe half an hour more than the average at best. But like I said, the average, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Now about call reception. I mean, the call quality, in my opinion, is fine. People always want to talk about it. They said it's supposed to be bad on the S10 series. I mean, it's not bad enough that it kind of would stand out in some way or the other. Like I said, reception maybe yes, even though Wi-Fi is very strong. So now let's get into software just a little bit, because I actually have to say this. I would say I love One UI, because it has so many useful features and it has so many great stuff. Okay, it also has so much bloat, but I actually don't mind that so much, because the Samsung apps, okay, fine, and there is some Microsoft stuff and so on, and you could with a kind of packages able to get even rid of more of that, but it's not really in your face that much, because when I check the apps and when I check the services, there are a lot of background services running, like for example Bixby and Samsung Framework stuff, and I get that it's annoying, but you don't really notice that much as a normal mainstream consumer off of that. And that's a pretty important thing. But what I like so much about this phone, for example, let's actually switch the language here as well, just to keep it a little bit easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. I could show this on the S10e, which has already English, but yeah, doesn't really matter. So, what is going on? Okay, I thought it locked up. So yeah, maybe it's not super optimized, but it doesn't matter. I think the performance is good. Now let's get into what is it, where is it? Advanced features. Motion and gestures. This is a big part actually. We have lift to wake, nice. We have double tap to wake, nice. Smart stay, smart alert, easy mute. That's all good and dandy, handy, fandy, bandy, knandy. No. I'm not going to go into all the stuff. I actually wanted to make a separate video just for that, but I don't think it's necessary after all. But here's what I actually wanted to get into: navigation bar. So we have the option to have traditional buttons. You can also, as you can see here, rearrange, and that is nice. We also have full screen gestures. But here is one big thing. We have gesture hints. Let me enable those. It takes a second. Now what you can do here is obviously you can see what it does and just enter. But the thing is, if you use, for example, now and swipe to the left, it goes to the last app. Okay. If you don't have the gesture hints, you can't do this. Now, like I said, I use the OnePlus gestures and I do this from the side and it does the same. So it goes back to the last app. It just doesn't work since I didn't have the last app. So that kind of resolves the issue. And if I, for example, use the S10 Plus, which is big, I have a harder time to stretching up here to get to the last apps. But I can do this just by doing this with the navigation gestures. But it's great to have the options, not just having full screen gestures, but also have the hints if you want that, to have a more traditional Android style layout for the gestures and the navigation buttons. I like that so much. You have the edge screen that I'm not gonna get into. We have screen zoom. We can change the font size and the font itself by default already. Blue light filter, adaptive brightness, so many options. I also like that we have the swipe with your palm. For the screenshot option is also great. If you, for example, press it right now, it will scroll down and you could have a scroll shot. So just let me tell you this. So many useful features for the display, for the audio with Dolby Atmos, for games, you have the kind of game center. You have the voice care where you can see the battery status with how long it will hold up, with the battery life, storage, memory, security. We have an optimizer that I wouldn't really use though. Wallpapers, themes. I mean, the good ones cost, but I found some decent ones actually for free. Lock screen options. Face unlock. I actually didn't even talk about it. Face unlock works absolutely great. Yes, it's maybe not secure. I've tried it. If I just use a different phone with my face, it would unlock. I don't have the picture here right now, but I could actually do this otherwise. I've talked about device care already. I wanted to get into, where is it? Digital well-being. So here you can see the screen on time at the moment and whatever else. So good. I mean, I know a lot of people said that I'm not gonna buy a Samsung just because of the software, and I'm just gonna say this. I think these people have definitely not used One UI before, but they also haven't used, like, for example, any Samsung phone of the last 1 or 2 years. Because since the S9, it already had no impact on the performance, but especially since the S8, it was already really usable, and it's so handy, so many great options with the quick settings, and everything is lower right now. And I mean, the one-handed thing doesn't work everywhere. And for example, you have the kind of swipe up motion where you can have one screen mode and all those things. And the good thing is, there are some options that maybe aren't really even that helpful. But the way more important for me is that everything is optional. If you want to use it, it is there. And if you don't care about it, or if it's a gimmick or anything, just don't use it. I mean, that's great. Update support, okay, that might be an issue, that's for sure. We won't get the updates super quick, and we won't get them for super long. But yeah, that's that. Now, camera, let's get into that one. Let's check the software. Here we have the toggle between the modes, so wide angle. I mean, it's ultra wide, and then telephoto. Quite easy. We can swipe between the modes. We can swipe between the front and the back camera. We have some extra settings here. We have live. Let's actually so know these. We have the Instagram mode, food. Or let's actually go into this, because here is another quick cool thing that we have. Let's actually quickly go through all of them. We have screen optimizer, shot suggestions, flaw detection, motion photos, hold shutter for the button, save options, rear size with 4K 60 obviously, and so on. Stabilization, front mode, we have the steady mode, advanced recording options with HDR10 plus, high efficiency video, grid lines, camera modes. This is what I wanted to get into. If you don't want to use it all, just hide it. That is something super handy, because I usually only use photo and video, so I don't care about Instagram, food, panorama. I could just hide these. That is actually pretty nice. The next thing, and keep last mode is actually something very handy, because so many times when I want to use once again the same mode, I have to swipe to that mode, because usually they don't remember it. Some apps allow it, some other phones, but that is that. So I would say let's check the actual video or photo quality right now, and this will take a while, like the whole review does already. With no, I'm at 27 minutes. This will be overkill, but yeah, does not really matter. Okay, low light first. Yeah, nice pick. This is with the ultra wide. This is with the, wait, let me click this. This is with the normal one, and this is with zoom. Actually, one shot is missing. There was a zoom picture. Yeah, here once again, here, and this is with the zoom. Okay, my opinion on the zoom lens itself, no, it's not good, because just look at the normal one and then let's zoom in. You still see quite a lot of details here. Let's do the same thing here, and we don't have to zoom in, obviously, and you see no detail in it. It's super flat and super boring. And the low light qualities of this cam aren't really all that great, I have to say. It's good, and especially where I compare it with the Mi 9, I saw that it's actually not as bad as I expected at first, but I'm still not super impressed, especially since night mode or the bright side mode isn't really optional. If you have the scene detection, works or it doesn't work. And in my opinion, it usually just doesn't trigger when I would like it to. Here, once again, wide angle, normal, and zoom. Yeah, let's just forget that. And then some other night shots. And I have to say, these are actually pretty decent. This shot is, for example, pretty horrible once I zoom in. Blah. This looks so soft, and the details are missing. I don't know. This is even worse now when I turn on the flash. Yeah, but I mean, extreme conditions, I get that. So let's check the normal pictures that I do for ultra low light. This, without anything, just shot like actually quite good. This, once again, and here, for example, once actually bright side triggered, or I think I used scene detection and it actually did something. If it was bright side, I don't know. It looks a little bit better. But in most situations, like here, for example, it didn't trigger, so I don't have a second picture because there was no difference. Then, once again, wide angle, normal angle, and the zoom. So, low light is still good. I'm gonna give it 4 stars because it's not bad, but there's definitely room for improvement a lot more, as you can see here. Here it's dark, and once you turn on night mode, yeah. And here it does a fine job. So it's still a good low light, but it's definitely far from great. So Huawei and Google do a way better job. Yeah, and let's just finish this off. Okay, let's check it under, I would say, decent lighting conditions. They definitely weren't great. It wasn't all that much sun there. I had, I think, better weather when I compared it side by side with the Mi 9. You can check that comparison. But usually, as you can see here, a lot of details. Even though, let's get to one thing, colors. Just so you know that out of the box, pretty much every shot is too warm. Some few ones are too cold, but pretty much they never get the white balance right, and it's usually oversaturated. And for example here, if you use the scene detection mode, it sees flowers, and as you can see, it boosts the brightness, if you like that or not. It's great that it delivers a lot of details. And the autofocus works very reliable. Scene detection, as you can see here, didn't help. Here once again, this, for example, a little bit pale and flat, even though already a little bit oversaturated, but definitely too warm, and then it gets oversaturated. So if you want, this is the thing, if you want, like you can see here now, great looking pictures, you get this with this cam, and even more so kind of pleasant or kind of spectacular if you use scene detection, it does what it does. If you want natural, then you're a little bit out of luck, especially here, it just does too much sometimes. Here it actually helps for once, because as you can see, no details here, everything is lost. But if we go with the scene detection, you can actually see the big difference of the clouds. Once again, these pictures, let's quickly go through them because I don't really have much more to say. I like the cam a lot. It's sharp, it has a lot of details, the shutter is fast. Scene detection, if you want it, works decent. I would wish for a little bit more of a feedback what it actually tries to do, because sometimes there is just this swirl going around and you don't even know if it's doing something. So yeah. But if you want just great looking pictures and you don't care about accuracy, natural pictures and so on, then this is your cam. And the same thing pretty much for the front facing selfie cam. As you can see here, this is the normal mode, and this is kind of the group selfie mode. And I would just tell you this, use that one all the time, because otherwise I think it's a little bit too much cropped in, and this looks great, and this with the blur. And now in case you might say, in some cases like here, if I turn on the here, it's sometimes here you can see it. This looks a little bit oversaturated, and then when I actually use the portrait mode, it looks a little bit more pale. I guess I didn't use the same mode. But it's the same thing here. Oversaturated, a little bit out of the box, too warm, but a lot of details, nice clarity, sharpness. The bokeh mode works pretty nice, and especially I like this one. I kind of like the one where it puts me in focus with colors and the background still blurry. Obviously in the background, black and white. It's a pretty nice feature, and it works pretty well. It looks always realistic. Okay, maybe here, as you can see, it cuts out my hair, but yeah, that little bit that I have. Okay, that was it pretty much already for the pictures. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the videos to the end of this one, because I know so many people don't care about the video, so I'm gonna attach it after the conclusion, and I would say right now it's time to get to the conclusion itself. Okay, so for all of you still awake, let's get to the conclusion. But I mean, I told you it will take some time, and it will take this also for the conclusion, because now I have to just tell you a little bit more also subjective stuff. Also, for example, why I returned my S10. But let's actually go through all the things just once real quick, so you get the full picture in case you maybe slept for a few minutes. Okay, in terms of design, I like all of them. I prefer the slightly smaller one with the S10 and S10 Plus, but this is also actually one reason that I would say that the S10 maybe doesn't make so much sense, because if you want the more compact one and actually even cheaper one without actually making any compromises, get the S10e. If you want a better battery life with the bigger phone, generally go for the S10 Plus. For some people, it might be the golden middle. For me, it's actually not, and later on, yeah, we'll see why. But here I have to say this. Build quality on all of them is great. In and feel, and I mean, no one should be disappointed by that part. The display, this one impressed the hell out of me, because I did not expect to like what I thought to be inferior 1080p display over the other ones, and mostly for the reason that it's just as sharp, but for some reason cleaner. But let's not forget one thing. All three of them are pretty much the pinnacle of what's possible at the moment. Also in terms of speakers, loud, clear, good, rich quality, great headphone jack. Performance maybe not up with the very, very best ones, if you maybe check silly benchmarks or some things like that, but in normal, real day use, it's still up there. And let's not forget that I've reviewed the Exynos version, not the even better Snapdragon version. Battery life, that's the disappointing part. This one is okay enough. The S10 I found, even though it's just half an hour, to be just a little bit not good enough, so I was disappointed and returned it. And the S10 Plus is still also not that good because it's still actually for some reason a noticeable degradation from the Note 9. I don't get that. The new chip should have been more efficient, and obviously over time with updates things might improve. But nah. It's not fair. And then we have a software that I think is absolutely gorgeous. I would put this actually almost on par if we kind of don't consider the bloat and maybe the update support with OnePlus, because it actually offers so many small, actually helpful features. All the bloat and all those gimmicks aren't in your face. It looks pretty in my opinion, and if not, just theme it. Just theme it. And then we got an overall still great camera with an absolutely gorgeous selfie camera. Pretty much one of the best, if not color accurate, selfie video. Low light is good. It's not terrible like some say, but it's definitely not nearly as good as what Huawei can do, and also Google. It is what it is. Main camera is great overall. A lot of features with the wide angle overall, if you want scene optimization and so on and so forth. The video is also great, so that's that. Now, let's talk about pricing. $750, $899 with the S10, and S10 Plus is $999. If you get this one, actually it's $1250 with 512 gigabyte though. I have to say this. Judging them with that price out of the box, I would say no to all of them. But I generally do this for every phone. But I also actually can't really judge them at this price point, because no one in their right mind, or no one has to, not just shouldn't, but has to pay this price if you don't make a horrible mistake. Because I got, for example, 32% off on the S10 because I got 20% through my job for corporate benefits. But just because I didn't get the bots, I got also 12% extra off, so 32%. But even if you just look at the pricing now, if I look at eBay, if I look at certain sites, you can already get this one imported even from Hong Kong for $600 instead of $750. And generally, I've seen this for $600 already going away all the time. For example, the S10 $750 already, or $700, and this one for like $850. So if you judge that based on this, and if I, for example, think that I could get this for $600, I actually got my S10 for $610, and then $450. If you actually take it right, because this is 128 gig, the $450 in Europe with the global version is also $450. You would have to say $500, but let's just even say $450. $600 to $450. What you get here is the better display, no discussion. The better speaker, no discussion. Performance and battery life, yeah, that goes to this one. Better software and generally better camera. And so many people told me that the Mi 9 wins, obviously, for my camera part, because of value. If you check the price of 900 or 1,000 compared to what you get here in terms of camera for 450, yes, value-wise it wins. And generally, this is the phone that value-aware people will get. But if you think what you get here with the S10e or Plus, this is actually pretty good value, especially since the prices will drop even if you don't do anything special quite quickly. For example, you have seen trade-in options. I've seen, like, for example, you return them your cheap LG phone. You get 400. And I've seen people actually getting those new phones already for 200, 300, 400. Obviously, with a trade-in, it's not the same. But I have a hard time judging them by what I think like artificially overpriced prices that they had at the beginning. $750, $899, $999, or $1250 are not prices that anyone has to pay. If you do things just decent, just halfway right, you will pay way less, and way less you pay, way better you are off with the value. And let's not forget one thing, and the one in the middle, are almost the complete total package. Because design, yes. Display, oh yes. Speaker, oh yes. Performance, still a total yes. Software, yes. Camera, yes. The only, maybe not so much yes, is the battery life. But if you are someone who's not an ultra hardcore user, the mainstream user will get through the day. Because actually, for example, when I had the S10 and I know a lot of people with the S8 or S9, they asked me, how is it? And I always said, yeah, it's great, but the battery life. And they said, wait, is it worse than on the S8 or S9? And I said, no, it's the same. But isn't that bad? I don't know. I also always am used to Samsung. I have no comparison. And they were also always fine with the battery life. So normal people that have S8, S9s, who don't know better, they don't really know what they're missing out on battery life, and those people are all happy. Okay, those people don't really know to appreciate the full benefits of the camera or the performance or the display and so on, because they have no comparison. And I would also have to lie if I would have to say that the S10 is a huge upgrade over the S9 or, for example, the Note 9. Because value-aware people at the moment wouldn't buy either of them. Because just think about it. The S9 here in Germany is going on prices for like 400. That is, even in the best case, still 200 less than the S10e. Because let's say 700. 700 the S10, if it's a great price for the S10, 400 for the S9. That's $300 of difference. And what do you get? The design is pretty much the same, and you kind of get the uglier punch hole. You get a little bit of bezel on the S9, but I would actually say most people would prefer that. I have to say I am okay with that. The screen might be smaller, but it's not really, because you don't have the benefit of a stretched out display. The display, if I would have it side by side, I would almost say that the S9 had a better display, because it did have this cleaner feel. Might also be a phone, but I don't think that it was my phone, because the S10 and S10 Plus look exactly the same, and both had a slightly not quite as clean white. But even that, let's say it's the same. It's the same. It's not really a better display. And I know some people have said that the S10 Plus is definitely the best display out on the market. And even if it is with some measurement, it's maybe 1% better than the S9. So let's say it's the same. Speaker system, I don't know, it's a little bit over time, but I was super pleased with those. So let it be a little bit better, okay? Performance, not that I can feel. Definitely not coming from the Note 9. Not really. Battery life, pretty much exactly as disappointing. Software, One UI is the same. And the camera, from my memory, having checked my old pictures that I had with the S9 or Note 9, I would actually say that low light felt a little bit better on those. Generally, they made some improvements. The autofocus works way better on the selfie cam. Generally, the selfie cam looks better. The front-facing cam, generally, the main cam looks a little bit better. The video got a little bit better. But all this by now could have also happened with the S9 with the updates that I didn't get to test anymore. So the little shittle bit better than the S10 might be better than the predecessor definitely doesn't make up for 300, 400, whatever it is in terms of difference. So let's not get this wrong. I love the S10 series. I don't like the battery life. Okay, but my daily driver will most probably be this one. And here's the thing why I returned my S10, actually with a broken heart almost, because I got it so cheap for 610. The main issue for me was I prefer this design just so much more. I prefer the fingerprint reader, even though it works great on the S10 series. On the E, I think it works just a little bit more convenient, because it's a proper button also, and I know blindly where to hit it, where I have to just sometimes look for it. That's one thing. The display, like I said, for some reason I like the form factor more and the actually cleaner display. Personal thing. Speakers, not really worse, so I don't care. Performance felt, let's just not really think much about it, but it felt a little bit better, but not that I would actually consider that to be a difference. The battery life was a tiny little bit better than on the S10, so that's why I'm going for the S10e, and the rest is the same, because I don't lose out on much here. Only the zoom lens that I wouldn't use anyways either. So the only reason why I'm actually returning my S10 is that the S10e exists, and I wanted a smaller phone, and this just feels even better for me, and it's cheaper. If I can get the Snapdragon version, which I will definitely review as well, just to show you those kind of differences, then I am super happy. Because the issue is, for example, someone from my brother told me, return the S10 and just get something else. And I said, here's the problem. What else am I supposed to get? I'm not gonna find a phone this year that will give me this compact size, because that's just not a thing anymore. This display, this speaker system, this software. I have to actually say by now every other software except of Oxygen feels way inferior. and this overall camera, because usually you don't get this great of a mic, you don't get this selfie camera capabilities. And I know they are not important for many, but for someone like me as a YouTuber who wants to make more kind of vloggy style videos, that works so good with this camera, that would be actually a big thing for me. And the main camera is super nice, and this is flagship camera level phone, because so many people say the S10e is the better SE. And yet they all use the S10 Plus because they prefer the battery life and they prefer the bigger phone. I think I'm one of the few people who say it is, in my opinion, the best. No, it's actually not. If I would completely be objective, I would say the S10 Plus is the best S10 because it has the bigger screen. It has maybe even the higher brightness, but it has the best speaker system. It has the best performance because I think it's the only one with the cooling system, with the liquid one and so on. It has the best battery life, and it has more cameras. I mean, it has the one more over the S10. And the S10 is the one that I bought, that I regret, and the S10e is the one that I should have bought or will get. So objectively, I think the S10 Plus is the best phone at the moment. As for right now, value something different, and still get the Note 9 or S10 or S9 Plus. But the SE at the moment is the only small phone that gives you everything. Oh, this is 40 minutes, but we are already at 40 minutes. It doesn't matter. We're 50 minutes. I mean, at 50 minutes, I can confidently say that I gave you all possible information that I have inside of me. If it was objective and it wasn't supposed to be objective. But it kind of was. Plus, I told you whatever I think is subjective. So, final words. Great. If value gets better, which it will with time, yes. But it's hard to justify any extra money over the S9. If it's not for maybe the wide angle camera. Okay, I'm done. Now for reals. Bye, until next time. No, I want to finish this the right way. Until next time, bye. Okay, so this would be the front-facing video cam, in this case of the S10 Plus, but they are otherwise pretty much the same. And if you've seen my preview, you know how good it actually looks until you get into low light, because there it gets grainy and tries to soften out, which is just way too much. Microphone quality, pretty good. Stabilization is also great. In terms of the crop, it seems fine. So besides skin tones looking a little bit too oversaturated, this is a pretty amazing camera. Pretty sweet. Especially since it also comes with autofocus. So, might be handy, but also sometimes might end up in not that sharp shot.